Sarah Martinez had always been different from her classmates. While other girls her age were thinking about makeup and dating, she spent her free time reading military history books and watching documentaries about famous battles. Her bedroom walls were covered with posters of fighter jets and aircraft carriers instead of pop stars and movie actors. At 17, Sarah was small for her age, standing barely 5 feet 2 inches tall and weighing less than 110 pounds. Her dark hair was always pulled back in a neat ponytail, and her brown eyes held a determination that seemed too intense for someone so young. She lived with her grandmother in a modest apartment near the naval base in San Diego, California. Sarah's father had been a Marine who died in combat when she was only 8 years old. Her mother, unable to cope with the loss, had left Sarah with her grandmother and disappeared from their lives completely. Despite these hardships, Sarah never felt sorry for herself. Instead, she channeled her pain into a burning desire to serve her country, just like her father had done. Every morning, Sarah would wake up at 5 o'clock sharp and go for a run around the neighborhood. She had taught herself basic military exercises from YouTube videos and books she borrowed from the library. Her grandmother, Maria, would watch from the kitchen window as Sarah did push-ups and sit-ups in their small backyard, worried that her granddaughter was pushing herself too hard. "Mija, you don't have to prove anything to anyone," Maria would often tell her during breakfast. "Your father will be proud of you just the way you are." But Sarah knew she had to prove herself. She had seen how people looked at her when she talked about joining the military. Teachers would smile politely, but change the subject quickly. Classmates would laugh and make jokes about how she was too small and weak to be a soldier. Even the military recruiter who visited their school seemed skeptical when Sarah approached his table with serious questions about enlistment. "Maybe you should consider other career options," the recruiter had said, looking her up and down with obvious doubt. "The military is very demanding, both physically and mentally. Not everyone is cut out for it." Those words stung, but they also fueled Sarah's determination even more. She spent hours researching different military branches and their requirements. She learned about physical fitness standards, educational requirements, and various job specialties. The more she learned, the more convinced she became that this was her calling. During her senior year of high school, Sarah applied to join the Navy immediately after graduation. She passed all the written tests with flying colors, scoring in the top 10%. However, she struggled with some of the physical requirements during her initial fitness assessment. Her small size worked against her in exercises that required upper body strength. "You'll need to improve significantly if you want to make it through basic training," the fitness instructor told her bluntly. "I've seen bigger, stronger recruits wash out because they couldn't handle the pressure." Instead of being discouraged, Sarah saw this as a challenge she needed to overcome. She created an intense training schedule for herself, working out twice a day and following a strict diet to build muscle. Her grandmother worried about her obsessive behavior, but Sarah was determined to prove that heart and determination mattered more than physical size. After months of preparation, Sarah finally shipped out to Naval Station Great Lakes for basic training. The moment she stepped off the bus with dozens of other recruits, she could feel the stares and hear the whispered comments. Most of the other recruits were bigger and looked more intimidating than she did. "Look at that tiny girl," someone behind her whispered. "She'll be crying for her mommy before the first week is over." Sarah kept her head high and followed the crowd into the processing building. She knew this was just the beginning of what would be the most challenging experience of her life, but she was ready for it. Basic training was everything Sarah had expected and more. The drill instructors seemed to take special pleasure in singling her out during exercises, pushing her harder than the others. They made her carry heavier packs during marches and gave her extra duty when she struggled with certain physical tasks. "Martinez," Petty Officer Johnson would shout across the training ground. "You think the enemy is going to go easy on you because you're small? Drop and give me 50. The other recruits began to see Sarah as a liability. During team exercises, they would groan when she was assigned to their group, expecting her to slow them down or cause them to fail. Some of them started calling her half-pint behind her back, and a few of the meaner recruits would make jokes about how she should have joined the Girl Scouts instead of the Navy. But Sarah refused to give up. Every night, while the other recruits slept, she would sneak out to the bathroom and do extra exercises. She practiced knot tying until her fingers were sore and studied military regulations until she had memorized entire sections. When she struggled with the obstacle course, she would ask the instructors for extra practice time during her free periods. Slowly, her persistence began to pay off. Her running times improved dramatically, and she started keeping up with the bigger recruits during physical training. More importantly, she began to excel in areas that didn't require physical strength. Her attention to detail was exceptional, and she had a natural ability to remember complex procedures and regulations. During weapons training, Sarah discovered she had an incredible talent for marksmanship. While other recruits struggled to hit their targets, Sarah consistently scored in the expert range. The instructors were impressed, but tried not to show it, maintaining their stern demeanor. "Not bad, Martinez," Petty Officer Johnson said after reviewing her shooting scores. "Maybe there's hope for you after all." As the weeks passed, some of the other recruits began to respect Sarah's determination. They saw how hard she worked and how she never complained, even when the instructors were particularly harsh with her. A few of them started helping her with the physical tasks she found challenging, and gradually, she began to find her place in the group. The final test of basic training was the Battle Stations exercise, a grueling 12-hour simulation that tested everything the recruits had learned. Teams had to work together to complete various scenarios, from firefighting to damage control to combat situations. Sarah's team was initially nervous about having her with them, but she surprised everyone with her leadership skills and quick thinking under pressure. When graduation day finally arrived, Sarah stood proud among her fellow sailors. She had not only survived basic training, but had earned the respect of her instructors and classmates. Her grandmother traveled from California to attend the ceremony, tears streaming down her face as she watched Sarah receive her Navy pin. "I told you that you could do it, Mija," Maria whispered as she hugged her granddaughter after the ceremony. "Your father would be so proud." Sarah's first assignment was to Naval Air Station Pensacola in Florida, where she would be working in base security. It wasn't the most glamorous job, but Sarah was grateful for the opportunity to serve. She arrived at the base with high hopes and a determination to prove herself once again in this new environment. The security department at Pensacola was run by Chief Petty Officer Williams, a 20-year veteran who had seen countless young sailors come and go. He looked at Sarah's file and then at her small frame, shaking his head slightly. "Gate duty," he said without ceremony. "You'll be checking IDs and monitoring vehicle access. Think you can handle that, sailor?" Sarah snapped to attention. "Yes, Chief. I won't let you down." Chief Williams assigned Sarah to the main gate, the busiest entry point to the base. It was considered one of the least important positions in the security department, often given to new arrivals or sailors who weren't trusted with more serious responsibilities. The other security personnel made it clear that they considered gate duty to be beneath them. "Hope you like standing around all day doing nothing," said Petty Officer Davis, one of the more experienced guards. "That's all gate duty is good for. Any monkey could do that job." Sarah's duties seemed simple enough on the surface. She had to check identification cards of everyone entering the base, inspect vehicles when necessary, and keep detailed logs of all activities. Most people treated her as invisible, barely acknowledging her presence as they showed their IDs and drove through. But Sarah approached even this basic assignment with the same intensity she had brought to basic training. She studied the base layout until she knew every building and every person authorized to be in restricted areas. She memorized the faces of regular personnel and visitors, learning their patterns and schedules. She read security manuals during her breaks and asked questions about proper procedures. The other guards laughed at her thoroughness. "It's just gate duty, half pint," they would say. "You don't need to memorize the entire base to check IDs." But Sarah believed that every job, no matter how small, was important for the overall security of the base. She treated each person who came through her gate with professionalism and respect, whether they were high-ranking officers or civilian contractors. Her attention to detail soon began to pay off in unexpected ways. She caught several people trying to enter with expired identification cards, and she identified 2 vehicles that were on the restricted list. She also noticed patterns in visitor schedules that helped the security department improve their overall efficiency. However, her colleagues continued to view her as an overeager rookie who was trying too hard to impress the higher-ups. They made jokes about her dedication and often excluded her from their conversations and social activities. Sarah tried not to let it bother her, but the constant mockery was wearing her down. One evening, as Sarah was finishing her shift at the gate, she overheard several of her colleagues talking about her in the security office. "That little girl thinks she's some kind of super cop," one of them said with a laugh. "Acting like gate duty is the most important job on the base." "She'll learn eventually," another voice added. "Once she realizes that nobody really cares about her detailed reports and perfect attendance record, she'll settle down and do the minimum like the rest of us." Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger, but she forced herself to walk away without confronting them. She knew that responding would only make things worse and give them more reasons to mock her. That night, as she lay in her small room in the barracks, Sarah wondered if she had made a mistake by joining the military. Maybe the people who had doubted her were right. Maybe she was too small, too weak, and too naive to make a real difference. The loneliness and isolation were harder to bear than any physical challenge she had faced during basic training. But the next morning brought a new challenge that would test everything Sarah had learned about security and attention to detail. It was a busy Tuesday, and the gate was experiencing heavier than usual traffic due to a large training exercise taking place on the base. Military vehicles, contractor trucks, and visiting personnel were creating long lines at all the entry points. Sarah noticed something unusual about one of the delivery trucks waiting in line. The driver seemed nervous, constantly checking his mirrors and fidgeting with his paperwork. His identification looked legitimate, but something about his behavior triggered Sarah's instincts. She had studied body language and suspicious behavior patterns during her security training, and this driver was displaying several red flags. When the truck reached her checkpoint, Sarah conducted a more thorough inspection than usual. The driver became increasingly agitated as she carefully examined his credentials and asked questions about his delivery schedule. His answers were vague and inconsistent, and he kept pressuring her to hurry up because he was running late. "Look, lady, I've got a schedule to keep," the driver said impatiently. "I make this delivery run twice a week. Ask anyone around here, they know me." But Sarah had been working the gate for several months now, and she had never seen this particular driver before. More concerning was the fact that his delivery manifest listed supplies for a building that she knew had been closed for renovation for the past month. "I need to verify some information," Sarah told the driver politely, but firmly. "Please pull over to the inspection area while I make a phone call." The driver's face flushed red with anger. "This is ridiculous. I'm just trying to do my job here. You're some kind of power-hungry rookie who thinks she's important because she's got a uniform on." Sarah maintained her professional composure despite the driver's increasingly hostile attitude. She contacted the security office to request backup and began a more detailed inspection of the truck's cargo area. What she found made her blood run cold. Hidden beneath legitimate delivery supplies, Sarah discovered several unmarked packages that didn't match anything on the delivery manifest. The packages were carefully concealed and would have been missed by a routine inspection. Her training told her that this could be anything from stolen military equipment to something much more dangerous. "Chief Williams, this is Martinez at the main gate," Sarah spoke quietly into her radio. "I need immediate assistance with a suspicious vehicle inspection. Possible security breach." Within minutes, the gate area was swarming with security personnel and military police. The driver's nervous behavior escalated to panic as he realized his deception had been discovered. He tried to flee on foot, but was quickly apprehended by the response team. The investigation that followed revealed that the driver was part of a smuggling operation that had been stealing sensitive military equipment and selling it on the black market. The unmarked packages contained classified electronics components worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. The fake delivery scheme had been operating successfully for months, with the criminals using forged paperwork and insider knowledge to avoid detection. Chief Williams personally thanked Sarah for her alertness and attention to detail. "Your thoroughness prevented what could have been a major security breach," he told her in front of the entire security team. "This is exactly the kind of vigilance we need from all our personnel." For the first time since arriving at the base, Sarah felt like her colleagues were looking at her with respect rather than mockery. Several of the guards who had previously dismissed her as an overeager rookie now approached her with genuine appreciation for her dedication to the job. However, not everyone was pleased with Sarah's success. Petty Officer Davis, who had been at the base for 3 years and considered himself the unofficial leader of the security team, felt threatened by the attention Sarah was receiving. He had been embarrassed by the fact that a junior sailor had uncovered a major security threat while more experienced personnel had missed it completely. "Don't let it go to your head, Martinez," Davis told her privately after the commendation ceremony. "You got lucky this time, but luck doesn't last forever. Real security work requires experience and judgment that you don't have yet." Sarah tried to ignore Davis's jealousy and negativity, but his attitude began to influence some of the other guards. A divide started forming in the security department between those who respected Sarah's abilities and those who resented her success. Despite the internal politics, Sarah's reputation for thoroughness and attention to detail continued to grow throughout the base. Officers began to specifically request her when they needed security escorts for important visitors or sensitive operations. Her gate duty logs were so detailed and accurate that they were often used as models for training new security personnel. One afternoon, Sarah was assigned to provide security for a group of visiting foreign military officers who were touring the base's training facilities. It was an honor to be chosen for such an important assignment, especially considering her junior rank and short time at the base. The visiting delegation included officers from several allied nations who were observing American military training techniques. Sarah was responsible for ensuring their safety and coordinating with base personnel to maintain proper security protocols throughout their visit. During the tour, one of the visiting officers, a colonel from the British Royal Air Force, struck up a conversation with Sarah about her background and military experience. He seemed genuinely interested in her perspective on base security and asked thoughtful questions about her training and procedures. "I'm impressed by your professionalism and attention to detail," the colonel told Sarah as they walked between training sites. "It's clear that you take your responsibilities very seriously, regardless of the assignment." Sarah felt proud to represent her country and her service branch in such a positive way. She had studied the backgrounds of all the visiting officers and was able to engage in informed discussions about their respective military systems and training methods. The tour was proceeding smoothly until an unexpected incident occurred at one of the training sites. A mechanical failure in a piece of equipment created a potentially dangerous situation with several personnel in the immediate area. Quick action was needed to evacuate the area and secure the site. While senior officers were focused on managing the technical aspects of the emergency, Sarah took the initiative to ensure the safety of the visiting delegation. She quickly assessed the situation, identified the safest evacuation route, and calmly guided the foreign officers away from the danger zone. Her quick thinking and smooth execution of emergency procedures impressed everyone present, especially the visiting officers who had been concerned about their safety in an unfamiliar environment. Sarah's calm professionalism under pressure helped prevent what could have been an embarrassing international incident. After the emergency was resolved, The British colonel sought out Sarah personally to commend her performance. "Young lady, your quick thinking and professional conduct today were exemplary," he told her. "You have the makings of an exceptional military leader." Word of Sarah's performance during the visit reached the highest levels of base command. Captain Morrison, the base security officer, called her into his office for a personal meeting to discuss her future career plans. "Seaman Martinez, your record here has been outstanding," Captain Morrison told her as she stood at attention in his office. "Your attention to detail, professional conduct, and dedication to duty have not gone unnoticed. I want to discuss some opportunities for advanced training and increased responsibilities." Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. After months of being treated as just another gate guard, she was now being recognized for her potential and offered opportunities for career advancement. The captain explained several options, including specialized security training, leadership development programs, and the possibility of cross-training in other military specialties. However, not everyone was happy about Sarah's growing reputation and the recognition she was receiving. The resentment among some of her colleagues had been building steadily, led by Petty Officer Davis and a few others who felt that she was getting preferential treatment. Their jealousy came to a head during the annual base security evaluation, when an outside team of inspectors came to assess the effectiveness of all security procedures and personnel. Sarah was chosen as one of the primary representatives to demonstrate gate security protocols to the evaluation team. The demonstration went perfectly, with Sarah showcasing the thorough procedures she had developed for checking credentials, inspecting vehicles, and maintaining detailed security logs. The inspectors were impressed by her knowledge of regulations and her professional demeanor throughout the evaluation. "This sailor represents the gold standard for entry control procedures," the lead inspector noted in his report. "Her attention to detail and commitment to security protocols should be a model for all personnel in similar positions." The positive evaluation results were a source of pride for the entire base, but they also intensified the resentment that some guards felt towards Sarah. Davis and his supporters began spreading rumors about her, suggesting that she was only successful because she was trying to impress higher-ranking officers rather than genuinely caring about security. "She's just a brown-noser who's trying to advance her career by making the rest of us look bad," Davis told anyone who would listen. "Real sailors don't need to show off and act like they're better than everyone else." The hostile work environment began to affect Sarah's daily life on the base. Some of her colleagues would deliberately exclude her from informal gatherings and conversations. Others would make subtle comments designed to undermine her confidence and make her feel unwelcome. Sarah tried to focus on her duties and ignore the negativity, but the constant tension was emotionally draining. She had joined the military hoping to find a sense of belonging and purpose, but instead found herself isolated and resented by many of her peers. The situation reached a breaking point when Davis and several other guards filed a formal complaint against Sarah, accusing her of being insubordinate and claiming that her thorough procedures were unnecessarily slowing down gate operations. They demanded that she be transferred to a different assignment where her attention-seeking behavior wouldn't interfere with their work. Chief Williams was put in a difficult position. Sarah's record was exemplary, and her procedures had significantly improved base security, but he was facing pressure from several experienced personnel who were threatening to request transfers if something wasn't done about the situation. "Martinez, I want you to know that I think you're one of the best sailors I've worked with," Chief Williams told Sarah during a private meeting. "But I also have to consider the morale and cohesion of the entire security team. I'm going to have to ask you to tone down your approach and try to work more cooperatively with the other guards." Sarah felt betrayed and confused by the chief's request. She had always tried to be cooperative and professional with her colleagues, and she couldn't understand why doing her job well was being seen as a problem. The suggestion that she should lower her standards to make others feel better went against everything she believed about military service. That evening, Sarah sat alone in her room, seriously considering whether she should request a transfer to a different base or even leave the military altogether. The dream she had worked so hard to achieve was turning into a nightmare of office politics and petty jealousy. Everything changed on a humid Thursday morning in late September. Sarah was working her regular shift at the main gate when she noticed an unusual amount of activity around the base command building. Military vehicles were arriving more frequently than normal, and she could see personnel moving with the kind of purposeful urgency that indicated something important was happening. Around 10 o'clock, a black sedan with government plates approached her checkpoint. The driver was a civilian in a dark suit, but the passenger was clearly military, though she couldn't see his rank or unit insignia from her position. What caught her attention was the way other personnel on the base were reacting to the vehicle's presence. Even from a distance, she could see people standing straighter and showing unusual deference. "Good morning," the civilian driver said as he presented his credentials. "We have an appointment with Captain Morrison." Sarah examined the identification carefully, noting that both men had high-level security clearances. Their paperwork was in perfect order, but something made her take a second look at the military passenger. She had trained herself to notice details that others might miss, and there was something familiar about the man's bearing and presence. As she handed back their identification and waved them through, Sarah caught a glimpse of the passenger's uniform. The insignia she saw made her do a double-take. This wasn't just any military officer. Based on the rank and unit patches she could see, this appeared to be a very senior special operations commander. Throughout the rest of her shift, Sarah noticed increased activity throughout the base. More security patrols were visible, and she received several updates about enhanced alert procedures. It was clear that the visiting officer was someone of significant importance, though the exact details were being kept confidential. Around 2 o'clock that afternoon, Sarah saw the black sedan approaching her gate again, this time heading off the base. As the vehicle slowed for the exit procedures, she got a much clearer look at the passenger. Her military training and extensive study of unit insignia allowed her to identify him as a Navy SEAL commander, based on his trident pin and other visible decorations. The commander was looking directly at her through the passenger window, and for a moment their eyes met. Sarah maintained her professional posture and gave a crisp salute as the vehicle passed through the checkpoint. To her surprise, the commander returned her salute with equal precision, nodding slightly in acknowledgement. After the sedan disappeared down the road, Sarah returned to her duties with a sense of pride. She had just had a professional interaction with one of the military's most elite officers, and she felt that she had represented herself and her unit well during the brief encounter. However, Petty Officer Davis, who had been watching the exchange from the security office, saw an opportunity to cause trouble for Sarah. He had been looking for any excuse to undermine her reputation, and he decided to twist this routine interaction into something inappropriate. "Did you see that little show Martinez just put on?" Davis said loudly to the other guards in the office, acting like she's some kind of VIP just because an officer drove by. Probably thinks she's going to get promoted for waving at important people. Davis began spreading his version of events throughout the security department, claiming that Sarah had been showing off and trying to draw attention to herself during the commander's visit. He suggested that her behavior was unprofessional and that she was using gate duty as a way to network with high-ranking officers. "She's always trying to make herself look special," Davis told Chief Williams during an informal conversation. "Now she's putting on performances for visiting dignitaries. It's embarrassing for the whole department." The rumors and gossip spread quickly through the base's informal communication network. By the end of the day, several versions of the story were circulating, each one more exaggerated than the last. Some people were saying that Sarah had stepped out of her post to personally greet the visiting officer, while others claimed she had been reprimanded for inappropriate conduct. Sarah was unaware of the rumors until the next morning, when she noticed that several colleagues were giving her strange looks and whispering among themselves when she walked by. The hostility she had been experiencing from some guards seemed to have intensified overnight. The fact that her professionalism was being twisted into something negative made her question everything about her place in the military. The situation became even worse when word of the incident reached Captain Morrison's office. Davis had filed a formal complaint alleging that Sarah's conduct during the VIP visit had been inappropriate and potentially embarrassing to the base. He requested that she be formally reprimanded and removed from gate duty. Captain Morrison called Sarah into his office for what she expected to be a routine meeting about her performance. Instead, she found herself facing serious allegations about her conduct and professionalism. The captain's demeanor was cold and official as he read from the complaint that had been filed against her. Seaman Martinez, it has been alleged that you engaged in inappropriate attention-seeking behavior during yesterday's VIP visit, Captain Morrison said sternly. Specifically, that you stepped outside your assigned duties to draw attention to yourself and potentially embarrass this command. Sarah was stunned by the accusations. She tried to explain what had actually happened, describing the routine nature of her interaction with the visiting officer and her adherence to standard military protocol. However, the captain seemed more inclined to believe the version of events presented by Davis and his supporters. Multiple witnesses have corroborated these allegations, the captain continued. This kind of behavior is unbecoming of a sailor and reflects poorly on this entire command. I am considering formal disciplinary action. Sarah felt her military career crashing down around her. Everything she had worked for, all the challenges she had overcome, seemed meaningless in the face of false allegations and office politics. She requested permission to present her side of the story in detail, but the captain seemed to have already made up his mind about her guilt. You're dismissed, Seaman Martinez, Captain Morrison said curtly. I'll be making a decision about your future here within the next few days. In the meantime, you're reassigned to administrative duties pending the outcome of this investigation. Sarah left the captain's office feeling defeated and betrayed. The military she had dreamed of joining, the institution she had hoped would value merit and dedication over politics and favoritism, seemed to be just as corrupt and unfair as any other organization. That evening, as Sarah sat in her room, contemplating her uncertain future, she received an unexpected visitor. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez from the base personnel office knocked on her door with an urgent message. Seaman Martinez, you need to report to Captain Morrison's office immediately, Rodriguez said. There's been a development in your case. Sarah's heart sank as she walked across the base to the command building. She assumed that the captain had decided to proceed with formal disciplinary action and that she was about to receive orders for a court-martial or administrative separation from the Navy. When she arrived at the captain's office, she was surprised to find several people waiting inside. Captain Morrison was there along with Chief Williams and two officers she didn't recognize. One of them was wearing the uniform of a Navy SEAL commander, the same officer she had encountered at the gate 2 days earlier. Seaman Martinez, please come in, Captain Morrison said, his tone completely different from their previous meeting. I believe you know Commander Jackson from his recent visit to our base. Commander Jackson stepped forward and extended his hand to Sarah. Seaman Martinez, it's good to see you again. I wanted to personally thank you for your outstanding professionalism during my visit here. Sarah was confused and overwhelmed by the unexpected praise from such a high-ranking officer. Commander Jackson continued speaking, explaining why he had returned to the base. After my visit here, I contacted Captain Morrison to commend the exceptional quality of his gate security personnel, Commander Jackson said. Specifically, I wanted to recognize the sailor who demonstrated textbook military courtesy and bearing during my departure from the base. The commander went on to describe how impressed he had been with Sarah's crisp salute, professional demeanor, and obvious attention to detail during their brief interaction. He explained that he had served in special operations for over 20 years and had developed an eye for recognizing exceptional military potential. In my experience, true professionalism is rare and should be recognized when it's observed, Commander Jackson continued. This sailor's conduct was exactly what we expect from the finest members of our military. Captain Morrison's face was red with embarrassment as he realized the magnitude of the mistake he had nearly made. The allegations against Sarah had been completely false, and he had almost disciplined one of his best sailors based on jealousy and misinformation. Commander Jackson has also informed me about a special opportunity that might be of interest to you, Seaman Martinez, Captain Morrison said, trying to recover his composure. The SEAL teams are always looking for support personnel with exceptional attention to detail and uncompromising standards. Commander Jackson nodded and addressed Sarah directly. We have openings for security specialists who can meet our extremely high standards. The work would involve supporting special operations units in various capacities, and the training would be among the most challenging in military. Sarah could hardly believe what she was hearing. Less than an hour ago, she had been facing the possible end of her military career. Now, one of the Navy's most elite commanders was offering her an opportunity that most sailors could only dream about. The decision is entirely up to you, Commander Jackson said. But based on what I observed during my brief time here, I believe you have exactly the kind of character and dedication that our teams need. As Sarah listened to the commander's offer, she could see Chief Williams and Captain Morrison exchanging uncomfortable glances. They both realized that they had almost lost an exceptional sailor due to office politics and poor judgment. The revelation about Commander Jackson's true assessment of Sarah's conduct spread quickly throughout the base. Petty Officer Davis and his supporters were suddenly exposed as the real source of unprofessional behavior, and their credibility within the security department was completely destroyed. Sarah accepted Commander Jackson's offer, but before leaving for her new assignment, she had one final conversation with her colleagues at the main gate. Many of them approached her with apologies and expressions of regret about how she had been treated. "I'm sorry we didn't see what that commander saw in you," one of the guards told her sincerely. "You were always a better sailor than any of us gave you credit for." Even Chief Williams took her aside for a private conversation before her departure. "Martinez, I want you to know that I learned something important from this whole situation," he said. "Real leadership means recognizing and supporting excellence, not trying to suppress it because it makes others uncomfortable." On her last day at the gate, Sarah stood at her post one final time, reflecting on everything that had happened over the past year. She had faced mockery, isolation, false accusations, and nearly saw her career destroyed by jealousy and politics. But she had also proven that dedication, integrity, and attention to detail could overcome any obstacle. More importantly, she had learned that true recognition sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources and at the most crucial moments. As she saluted the flag one last time before leaving for her new assignment, Sarah knew that her father would have been proud of how she had handled herself under pressure. She had not only survived the challenges of military life, but had emerged stronger and more confident than ever before. The young woman who had been laughed at for taking gate duty seriously was now heading to one of the most prestigious assignments in the entire military, personally recommended by a SEAL commander who had recognized her exceptional character in a single brief encounter. Sarah's story became legendary throughout the base, serving as a reminder that excellence is always noticed by those who matter most, even when it seems like the whole world is against you. Her example inspired a new generation of young sailors to maintain their standards and pursue their dreams, regardless of the obstacles they might face along the way.